At 28 years old, Maya Rodriguez had achieved something most people only dream about. She walked through the glass doors of TechFlow Solutions every morning with a sense of purpose that energized everyone around her. The building hummed with activity, but it wasn't the stressed-out chaos you'd find in most corporate offices. This was different. This was alive. Maya had never planned to become the youngest CEO in the company's 40-year history. When she first joined TechFlow 3 years ago as a junior project manager, the company was struggling. Revenue was dropping, employees were quitting faster than they could hire replacements, and their biggest clients were looking elsewhere for solutions. The previous CEO had retired abruptly, leaving behind a mess that nobody seemed capable of fixing. But Maya saw potential where others saw problems. During her first week, she noticed something that everyone else had missed. The company's biggest issue wasn't their technology or their pricing. It was communication. Departments worked in isolation, clients felt ignored, and employees had no idea how their daily work connected to the bigger picture. She started small. Maya began organizing informal lunch meetings where different departments could share what they were working on. She created a simple weekly newsletter, highlighting employee achievements and explaining how each project helped their clients succeed. When a major client complained about delayed responses, Maya didn't just apologize. She set up a direct communication channel and personally ensured their concerns were addressed within hours, not days. The changes were subtle at first, but the results spoke louder than any corporate presentation. Client satisfaction scores improved by 30% in just 6 months. Employee turnover dropped to almost zero. Projects that used to take weeks were completed in days because teams were actually talking to each other. The board noticed. When they offered Maya the CEO position 18 months later, she was terrified. Leading a team of 5 people was one thing, but running an entire company? She almost said no. Her mentor, Dr. Williams from her MBA program, convinced her to take the leap. "You're not managing a company," he told her. "You're leading people. And people respond to authenticity, not authority." Dr. Williams was right. Maya's first decision as CEO was to remove the executive parking spots. Her second was to move her office from the top floor to the middle of the building, where she could interact with employees naturally throughout the day. These weren't calculated PR moves. They reflected her genuine belief that leadership meant being accessible and present. The transformation accelerated under her guidance. Maya introduced flexible work hours, understanding that creativity doesn't follow a 9-to-5 schedule. She established an innovation fund where any employee could pitch ideas for improving their products or processes. The best part? If an idea was implemented and succeeded, the employee received a bonus and recognition at the monthly company meeting. One of her most successful initiatives started as a casual conversation in the break room. Lisa from customer service mentioned that clients often asked for features that already existed, but were buried in complex menus. Instead of dismissing this as a training issue, Maya organized cross-departmental workshops where customer service representatives worked directly with the development team to redesign the user interface. The result was revolutionary. Their main software product became so user-friendly that client onboarding time decreased by 60%. Existing customers started upgrading to premium packages because they could finally access advanced features without confusion. Word spread through industry networks, and new clients began reaching out to TechFlow instead of the other way around. Maya's approach to company culture was equally transformative. She instituted Failure Fridays, where employees could share mistakes they'd made and what they learned from them. This created an environment where people took calculated risks instead of playing it safe. Innovation flourished because nobody feared being punished for trying something new. The office itself reflected this culture shift. Gone were the sterile cubicles and formal conference rooms. Maya worked with employees to create collaborative spaces with comfortable seating, natural lighting, and areas where people could have spontaneous conversations. The company dog, a golden retriever named Buddy belonging to one of the developers, became an unofficial stress reliever who roamed freely between departments. Financial results followed the cultural improvements. In her second year as CEO, Maya led the company to its most profitable year ever. Revenue increased by 45%, and they landed 3 major contracts that competitors had been chasing for years. Industry publications took notice, featuring Maya in articles about innovative leadership and workplace transformation. But the recognition that meant the most to Maya came from her employees. During the annual company retreat, the team surprised her with a video compilation of testimonials. Engineer after engineer, salesperson after salesperson, shared stories of how working at TechFlow had changed their lives. Some talked about feeling valued for the first time in their careers. Others mentioned how the flexible policies had allowed them to balance work with family responsibilities they couldn't handle at previous jobs. Tom, a senior developer who had been with the company for 8 years, summed it up perfectly. Before Maya, I came to work because I had to. Now I come to work because I want to. She didn't just change our processes. She reminded us why we love what we do. Maya's success wasn't accidental. She had earned her MBA from a prestigious program while working full-time at her previous job. She studied under some of the most respected business professors in the country and graduated summa cum laude. Her thesis on collaborative leadership in technology companies had been published in a peer-reviewed journal and was required reading in several business programs. More importantly, she understood that technical skills meant nothing without emotional intelligence. Maya made it a point to know every employee's name, their career goals, and at least one personal detail about their life outside work. When Janet from accounting was going through a difficult divorce, Maya quietly arranged for flexible hours and connected her with the company's employee assistance program. When recent college graduate Alex struggled with imposter syndrome, Maya became his informal mentor, meeting monthly to discuss his progress and career development. The success extended beyond the office walls. Maya volunteered as a guest lecturer at local business schools, sharing her experiences with the next generation of leaders. She joined the board of a nonprofit organization focused on increasing diversity in technology careers. Under her leadership, TechFlow implemented an internship program that specifically recruited from underrepresented communities. By all measures, Maya had built something extraordinary. Employee satisfaction scores consistently ranked in the top 5% of companies in their industry. Client retention rates exceeded 90%. The company had grown from 60 employees to over 100, and they were actively planning expansion into 2 new markets. Standing in her office one evening, looking out at the city lights, Maya felt grateful for the journey that had brought her here. She had taken a struggling company and transformed it into a place where people genuinely enjoyed working, and clients felt truly valued. It was exactly the kind of impact she had dreamed of making. When she first decided to pursue business leadership, she had no idea that someone was already planning to destroy everything she had built. The first email arrived on a Tuesday morning. Board member Patricia Coleman was having her usual coffee when she opened what appeared to be a message from a concerned industry professional. The sender's address looked legitimate, and the tone was respectful but worried. The message claimed to have serious concerns about Maya Rodriguez's qualifications and suggested that her MBA credentials might not be what they seemed. Patricia almost deleted it. She had worked with Maya for over a year and had nothing but respect for her leadership. But something made her pause. The email included specific details about Maya's graduate program and mentioned inconsistencies in dates that seemed oddly precise for a random accusation. She wasn't the only one. By the end of the week, 3 other board members had received similar messages from different email addresses. Each message was slightly different but carried the same underlying theme. Maya Rodriguez might not be who she claimed to be. The rumors started small, whispered conversations in industry networking events and professional conferences. Someone would mention hearing concerning things about the young CEO of TechFlow Solutions. When pressed for details, they'd become vague, suggesting the information came from reliable sources who preferred to remain anonymous. Maya first heard about it during a client meeting. The procurement manager at Davidson Industries, a potential client worth millions in annual revenue, seemed unusually hesitant during their presentation. TechFlow's proposal was clearly superior to their competitors, but something felt off about the meeting's energy. After the formal presentation ended, the procurement manager, Robert Chen, asked to speak with Maya privately. "I need to ask you something directly," he said, looking uncomfortable. "We've heard some rumors about your background. I'm not saying I believe them, but our legal department requires us to verify credentials for any vendor relationships over a certain threshold." Maya felt her stomach drop, but she maintained her composure. "Of course," she replied. What specific information do you need? I'm happy to provide any documentation that would help with your verification process. Robert seemed relieved by her straightforward response. Just the standard stuff. Degree verification, previous employment confirmation, that sort of thing. I'm sure it's nothing, but you know how these things go. Maya provided everything Robert requested, but she left the meeting with a nagging worry. Where had these rumors come from? Her credentials were solid. She had worked hard for her MBA and graduated with honors. Her previous employment history was well documented and easily verifiable. The whispers grew louder over the following weeks. At the monthly tech industry breakfast meeting, Maya noticed that conversations seemed to quiet when she approached different groups. People who had previously been eager to discuss potential collaborations now seemed distracted and polite, but distant. The situation escalated when Maya received a call from her former business school colleague, James Liu. They had stayed in touch since graduation and often referred business opportunities to each other. Maya, I need to give you a heads up, James said, his voice serious. Someone's been asking questions about you at alumni events. They claim to be doing background research for a potential partnership. But the questions are odd. They're asking about your academic performance, your thesis advisor, even your student loan history. Maya felt a chill run down her spine. Did you recognize the person asking? No, and that's what's strange. They knew enough about our program to sound legitimate, but nobody I talked to actually knew them, and when I tried to follow up, the contact information they left was fake. That evening, Maya decided to do some investigation of her own. She started with simple Google searches of her name combined with her company. The results were normal at first. Industry articles featuring her, TechFlow's website, press releases about their recent successes. But buried on the third page of results, she found something that made her blood run cold. A forum post on an anonymous business discussion site questioned whether Maya Rodriguez was another example of unqualified leadership in tech. The post was carefully worded to avoid direct accusations, but it suggested that readers do their own research about her background. Worse, the post had received dozens of supportive comments, each adding small details that painted a picture of someone who had potentially misrepresented their qualifications. Maya knew every detail in the post was either false or twisted beyond recognition, but she also knew that most people wouldn't take the time to verify the information. In today's digital world, perception often mattered more than reality. The attacks became more sophisticated. Fake LinkedIn profiles appeared, claiming to be former colleagues from her previous job at Morrison Analytics. These profiles looked authentic, complete with professional photos and detailed work histories. But the people they claimed to be didn't exist. One particularly damaging post came from someone claiming to have worked closely with Maya at Morrison Analytics. The fake colleague alleged that Maya had taken credit for a major project that was actually led by someone else. The post included specific project details that were accurate enough to seem credible, but twisted the facts to suggest misconduct. Maya contacted her actual former colleagues at Morrison Analytics, and they were shocked by the allegations. Her former supervisor, Dr. Patricia Hoffman, immediately wrote a letter confirming Maya's contributions to every project mentioned in the fake posts. But by then, the false information had already been shared and reshared across multiple platforms. The most devastating blow came when TechFlow's biggest client, Meridian Corporation, postponed signing their contract renewal. Maya had been working on this deal for 6 months, and it represented 30% of the company's annual revenue. The Meridian team claimed they needed additional time for enhanced due diligence procedures. Maya's assistant, Kevin Park, noticed that something was wrong during the rescheduling call. They kept asking about verification processes and background checks, he told Maya afterward. It felt like they were trying to ask something specific without actually asking it. The stress began taking its toll. Maya found herself constantly checking online mentions of her name and the company. She started second-guessing decisions she had made confidently just weeks before. Sleep became elusive as she worried about the impact on her, employees, and the company's future. The board meeting that month was unlike any Maya had experienced since becoming CEO. The usual friendly atmosphere was replaced by formal politeness and careful questions. Board member Richard Torres asked about risk management protocols and suggested they might need to review certain policies and procedures. Maya realized that the anonymous campaign was working. Doubt had been planted, and even people who knew her well were beginning to question what they thought they knew. The frustration was overwhelming because she couldn't fight an enemy she couldn't identify. The breaking point came when Maya discovered that someone had created an entire fake website designed to look like a whistleblower platform. The site, called techtruth.org, featured anonymous testimonials from supposed TechFlow employees claiming that Maya had created a culture of deception and that her success was built on misrepresented achievements. The testimonials were clever fabrications that mixed real information about TechFlow's recent successes with false claims about how those successes were achieved. Someone with inside knowledge of the company had crafted these lies because they included details about internal projects and processes that wouldn't be available to outsiders. Maya knew she had to act quickly. The rumors were spreading faster than she could address them individually, and she could see the doubt in her employees' eyes during their weekly team meetings. Some had started asking questions about the company's stability and whether the recent success was sustainable. That weekend, Maya sat in her apartment, surrounded by printouts of fake posts, fabricated testimonials, and screenshots of suspicious profiles. The pattern was becoming clear. This wasn't a random attack or a competitor trying to discredit TechFlow. The level of detail and inside information suggested something much more personal and much more dangerous. Someone who knew her well, someone with access to internal company information, was systematically destroying her reputation. But who would want to hurt her this badly? And more importantly, what were they hoping to gain by bringing down everything she had worked so hard to build? As she stared at the evidence spread across her coffee table, Maya realized that her biggest challenge wasn't just clearing her name. She had to figure out who was behind the attacks before they succeeded in destroying not just her career, but the livelihoods of everyone who had believed in her vision for TechFlow solutions. Maya knew she couldn't handle this alone. The anonymous attacks were becoming more sophisticated and damaging by the day. After spending a sleepless weekend researching her options, she decided to hire professionals who specialized in exactly this type of digital warfare. Crystal Lake Investigations had a reputation for handling complex cases involving corporate espionage and cyber harassment. When Maya met with the firm's lead investigator, Detective Rachel Cooper, she felt a glimmer of hope for the first time in weeks. "I've seen cases like this before," Detective Cooper explained as she reviewed the evidence Maya had compiled. "The good news is that people who orchestrate these campaigns usually get overconfident. They make mistakes. Our job is to find those mistakes and trace them back to the source." Detective Cooper's team included a digital forensics expert named Tony Kim and a corporate investigation specialist, Linda Foster. Together, they began the painstaking process of analyzing every fake profile, every anonymous email, and every suspicious post. Meanwhile, at TechFlow, Maya's assistant Kevin Park had started his own informal investigation. Kevin had been with the company for 2 years and had developed an almost protective instinct about Maya and TechFlow's reputation. He began by creating a detailed timeline of when each attack had occurred. "Look at this," Kevin said, showing Maya a spreadsheet he had created. "The first anonymous email to the board went out 3 hours after our quarterly financial meeting. The fake LinkedIn profiles appeared 2 days before our presentation to Meridian Corporation. And that fake whistleblower website launched the same week we announced our expansion plans." Maya studied the timeline, and a pattern emerged that made her stomach churn. Someone wasn't just attacking her randomly. They were strategically timing their attacks to cause maximum damage at the most crucial moments for TechFlow's business. Whoever is doing this knows our internal calendar, Maya realized. They know when we have board meetings, when we're pitching to major clients, when we're making important announcements. Kevin nodded grimly. "That's what I was thinking too. This has to be someone with inside access to our scheduling systems and strategic planning." The investigation team at Crystal Lake was reaching similar conclusions. Tony Kim had been analyzing the digital fingerprints left by the fake profiles and anonymous emails. His findings were both encouraging and disturbing. "The bad news is that whoever is doing this is technically sophisticated," Tony explained during their weekly briefing. "They're using VPN services, proxy servers, and temporary email accounts to hide their tracks. But the good news is that they're not perfect. I've found some patterns in their digital behavior that suggest they're working from a consistent location and using similar devices. Detective Cooper had been focusing on the content of the attacks. The level of detail in these fabricated stories is remarkable, she said. Whoever wrote these knows not just your professional history, but specific details about your daily routines, your relationships with board members, even personal information that wouldn't be publicly available. Linda Foster had been investigating the fake testimonials on the Tech Truth website. I've been analyzing the writing style and the specific claims made in each testimonial. While they're written to seem like they come from different people, there are consistent patterns in vocabulary and sentence structure. I believe they were all written by the same person. But the most significant breakthrough came from an unexpected source. Kevin had been reviewing TechFlow's building security footage, looking for anything unusual around the dates when the attacks intensified. What he found sent chills through everyone involved in the investigation. "You need to see this," Kevin said, pulling up footage from 3 weeks earlier on his laptop. The timestamp showed 11:30 p.m. on a Tuesday night. The video clearly showed someone using a keycard to enter the building after hours. I cross-referenced this with our keycard access logs, and the person who entered that night wasn't scheduled to be here. Maya watched the footage carefully. The video quality wasn't perfect, but she could make out a familiar figure walking through the hallway toward the executive offices. Her heart raced as she realized the implications. "Who has after-hours access to the building?" Detective Cooper asked. Maya reviewed the list. All board members, department heads, and senior management, plus a few people in IT and security who need access for maintenance and monitoring. The investigation team decided to expand their focus beyond digital attacks to physical security. They discovered that someone had been accessing Maya's office computer system after hours on multiple occasions. The access logs showed that confidential files had been viewed, including board meeting notes, client communication records, and strategic planning documents. "This is how they knew so much detail about your business operations," Tony explained. "They weren't just making educated guesses. They were stealing actual information and using it to make their attacks more credible." Maya felt violated in a way she had never experienced before. Someone she trusted had been invading her privacy and using her own information as weapons against her, but she also felt a growing determination to expose whoever was responsible. The next breakthrough came when Linda Foster discovered something odd about the timing of the fake testimonials. The Tech Truth website was updated multiple times, but always during very specific windows, she explained. Between 10 p.m. and midnight on Tuesday and Thursday nights, and between 6 a.m. and 8 a.m. on Saturday mornings. Kevin checked these time windows against the building access logs and found a disturbing pattern. The same person who had been accessing the building after hours was consistently present during the exact times when the fake website was being updated. "We're closing in on them," Detective Cooper said. "But we need more concrete evidence before we can identify the person responsible." The evidence they needed came from an unexpected mistake by their tormentor. In their latest attack, the anonymous campaign had included a detail that only one person could have known. Maya had shared a personal story about her childhood during a private conversation in her office just 2 days earlier. That same story appeared, twisted and distorted, in the newest fake testimonial on the Tech Truth website. Maya realized with growing horror that only one person had been present for that conversation. The revelation was so shocking that she initially refused to believe it could be true. The person she had trusted most, the person who had been her mentor and guide through some of the most challenging decisions of her career, had been systematically destroying her reputation and threatening everything she had worked to build. But the evidence was overwhelming. The access logs, the timing patterns, the inside knowledge, and now the personal information that only one person could have known. It all pointed to the same devastating conclusion. Detective Cooper had seen many cases of corporate betrayal, but even she was surprised by the calculated nature of this particular attack. "Whoever is doing this isn't just trying to damage your reputation," she told Maya. "They're trying to completely destroy your career and your company." This level of sustained, strategic attack suggests a very personal motivation. As the investigation team prepared to present their final findings, Maya struggled with the emotional impact of what they had discovered. The betrayal cut deeper than any professional setback she had ever experienced. Someone she had trusted completely. Someone she had considered not just a colleague but a friend. had been working to destroy her life. But Maya also realized that understanding the betrayal was just the first step. She needed to figure out why this person had targeted her so ruthlessly. What motivation could be strong enough to drive someone to such elaborate and destructive lengths? The answer to that question would prove to be even more shocking than the identity of her attacker. And when Maya finally learned the truth, it would change not just how she viewed this particular situation, but how she understood trust, loyalty, and the sometimes dark motivations that can hide behind familiar faces. The investigation was nearly complete, but the most difficult conversations were still ahead. Maya was about to discover that some betrayals run deeper than personal animosity, and that sometimes the people closest to us are capable of the most devastating deceptions. The meeting was scheduled for Thursday morning, but Maya couldn't sleep the night before. Detective Cooper had called the previous afternoon with news that would change everything. "We have everything we need," the detective had said. "But Maya, you're going to want to sit down for this conversation." Maya arrived at Crystal Lake Investigations 30 minutes early, her hands shaking slightly as she clutched her coffee cup. When Detective Cooper, Tony Kim, and Linda Foster entered the conference room, their expressions were serious but compassionate. They knew they were about to shatter someone's world. "Before we begin," Detective Cooper said gently, "I want you to know that we've triple-checked everything. There's no doubt about what we're going to show you." Tony opened his laptop and began displaying the evidence they had compiled: IP address traces, access logs, digital fingerprints, timing patterns. Everything pointed to the same conclusion that Maya had been dreading to accept. "The person orchestrating this campaign against you is Robert Mitchell, your chief financial officer," Detective Cooper said quietly. Maya felt the room spin around her. Robert Mitchell had been her mentor since she first joined TechFlow. He was the one who had encouraged her to apply for the CEO position. He had been her strongest supporter on the board, publicly defending her leadership style and her vision for the company. "That's impossible," Maya whispered. "Robert trained me. He's been my biggest advocate. He even defended me against these exact rumors at the last board meeting." Linda Foster pulled out a thick folder. "That's what makes this so calculated. He's been playing both sides perfectly, publicly supporting you while privately orchestrating your destruction." The evidence was overwhelming. Robert's home IP address connected to the VPN services used to create the fake profiles. His company laptop had been used to access the anonymous email accounts. Security footage showed him entering the building at the exact times when Maya's office computer system had been compromised. But the most damaging evidence was financial. Tony had discovered that Robert had been siphoning money from TechFlow through a complex network of fake vendor accounts and inflated consulting contracts. Over the past 4 years, he had embezzled nearly $3 million. "The timeline is crucial here," Detective Cooper explained. "Robert's theft began small, just a few $1,000s here and there. But when you became CEO and implemented new financial oversight procedures, you unknowingly put systems in place that threatened to expose his entire operation." Maya remembered those changes clearly. One of her first initiatives as CEO had been to streamline the company's vendor management system. She had required additional documentation for all contractors and consultants, implemented quarterly audits of vendor relationships, and created approval processes for payments over certain amounts. "Your improvements to financial transparency weren't just good business practices," Linda continued. "They were about to catch Robert red-handed. He realized that your new systems would eventually uncover his theft. So he decided to destroy your credibility before you could discover his crimes." The sophistication of Robert's plan became clear as the investigators walked Maya through the evidence. He had started planting seeds of doubt about her qualifications months before the anonymous email campaign began. Casual comments to board members about concerns he had heard. Subtle questions about verification processes during industry events. Gentle suggestions that perhaps the company should implement additional oversight measures. He was creating a narrative where you were the problem that needed to be solved, Detective Cooper explained, and he positioned himself as the loyal employee who was reluctantly raising concerns about someone he personally liked but professionally questioned. Maya thought back to conversations she had with Robert over the past several months. She remembered him expressing concern about rumors he had heard, offering to help address any unfair questions about her background. He had even suggested that they should proactively provide additional documentation to clients to get ahead of any potential issues. The cruelest part was that Robert had used Maya's own trust against her. When she shared concerns about the anonymous attacks, he offered comfort and support. When she worried about the impact on the company, he reassured her that the board still had confidence in her leadership, all while continuing to orchestrate the campaign designed to destroy her. The personal details in the fake testimonials came from your private conversations with him, Tony said. He had been documenting your personal stories and using them as material for his fabricated attacks. Maya felt sick as she realized the extent of the violation. Robert hadn't just stolen money from the company. He had stolen her trust, her personal stories, her private concerns and fears, and weaponized all of it against her. But the investigators had uncovered something even more disturbing. Robert's plan went beyond just discrediting Maya. He had been positioning himself as the stable, experienced leader who could step in to save the company from the crisis he was creating. "Look at this," Linda said, showing Maya a document they had recovered from Robert's personal computer. It was a detailed business plan for restructuring TechFlow Solutions under new leadership. The plan outlined how Robert would take over as interim CEO, implement necessary changes to restore client confidence, and lead the company through a recovery period. The document included talking points for conversations with board members, strategies for retaining key clients during the transition, and even a timeline for when Robert planned to announce his reluctant acceptance of additional leadership responsibilities. "He wasn't just trying to destroy you," Detective Cooper said. "He was trying to orchestrate a scenario where he would be seen as the company's savior while covering up his own crimes." Maya stared at the evidence in disbelief. Robert had crafted an elaborate plan to steal millions of dollars, destroy her reputation, take over her company, and position himself as a hero in the process. The audacity and calculated cruelty of it was breathtaking, but perhaps the most painful aspect was the personal betrayal. Maya thought about all the times Robert had offered advice and support, late nights working together on strategic planning, conversations about leadership challenges where Robert had shared what seemed like genuine wisdom and encouragement. Was any of it real? Maya asked quietly. Detective Cooper looked at her with sympathy. "That's the hardest part about cases like this. The relationship probably felt real to you, because your responses were genuine, but for him, it was likely strategic from the beginning. He needed your trust to maintain access to information and opportunities." The investigators explained that Robert's theft had started shortly after. Maya was promoted to a management position, but before she became CEO, he had likely seen her potential early on and realized that she posed a long-term threat to his illegal activities. He may have even supported your promotion to CEO because he thought he could control you, Linda suggested. Younger leaders often rely heavily on experienced mentors, which would have given him more influence over company policies and procedures. Maya realized that Robert's support for her CEO appointment might have been another calculated move. He probably assumed he could guide her decisions to protect his embezzlement scheme. When Maya proved to be more independent and implemented stronger financial controls than he expected, he shifted to Plan B, destroying her completely. The evidence file contained hundreds of pages documenting Robert's deception, fake email accounts traced to his devices, detailed logs of his after-hours access to Maya's office and computer systems, financial records showing the progression of his theft over 4 years, even drafts of fake testimonials found on his personal laptop, complete with revision notes where he refined his attacks to make them more damaging. As Maya absorbed the full scope of Robert's betrayal, she felt a range of emotions she had never experienced before: anger at being deceived so completely, hurt at having her trust violated in such a personal way, fear about what this would mean for the company and its employees. But underneath it all was a growing determination to make sure Robert faced consequences for what he had done. "What happens now?" Maya asked. Detective Cooper closed the evidence folder. "Now we present this to law enforcement. Robert Mitchell has committed multiple federal crimes: wire fraud, computer fraud, embezzlement, and possibly others. But Maya, you need to prepare yourself. This is going to get much worse before it gets better." Maya nodded, understanding that the hardest part was still ahead. She would have to confront Robert, inform the board, deal with the legal implications, and somehow hold her company together while the truth came out. But for the first time in months, she felt a sense of clarity. She finally knew who her enemy was, and she was ready to fight back. The emergency board meeting was called for Friday morning. Maya sat at the head of the conference table, surrounded by the same people who had been questioning her credibility just weeks earlier. Detective Cooper stood beside her with a presentation that would change everything. Board members shifted uncomfortably as the detective laid out the evidence. Patricia Coleman, who had received the first anonymous email, looked shocked as she realized how expertly she had been manipulated. Richard Torres, who had questioned Maya's risk management protocols, stared at the financial records showing years of systematic theft. Robert Mitchell has stolen approximately $2.8 million from this company, Detective Cooper announced, and he orchestrated an elaborate campaign to destroy Maya Rodriguez's reputation in order to cover up his crimes. The room erupted in stunned murmurs. Board member Jennifer Walsh raised her hand. "Where is Robert now?" "Federal agents arrested him at his home this morning," Detective Cooper replied. "He's being charged with wire fraud, computer fraud, embezzlement, and conspiracy. The evidence is overwhelming." Maya had expected to feel satisfaction when Robert was finally exposed, but instead she felt empty. Watching the board members process the betrayal, she realized that everyone in the room had been victimized by Robert's deception. After the detective finished her presentation and left, the board sat in stunned silence. Finally, Patricia Coleman spoke. "Maya, we owe you an enormous apology. We allowed doubt to cloud our judgment when we should have trusted what we could see with our own eyes, your integrity and your results." But what happened next surprised everyone, including Maya herself. Instead of anger or demands for accountability, Maya felt something unexpected: compassion. "I need to tell you all something," Maya said, her voice steady but emotional. The FBI shared some additional information about Robert's situation. His mother has been battling Alzheimer's disease for the past 3 years. The specialized care facility costs nearly $15,000 per month, and his insurance doesn't cover most of it. The board members looked confused about why Maya was sharing this information. Jennifer Walsh asked, "Are you suggesting we should feel sorry for him?" "No," Maya replied firmly. "What Robert did was wrong, and he needs to face consequences. But I think we need to understand that good people can make terrible choices when they feel desperate and alone." Over the following weeks, as the full extent of Robert's crimes became public, Maya's response continued to surprise everyone who knew the story. While she cooperated fully with the federal investigation and supported prosecution for the crimes he had committed, she also took steps that shocked the business community. Maya visited Robert's elderly mother at the care facility. The woman barely recognized her own son anymore, but Maya wanted to understand what had driven someone she trusted to such desperate measures. She learned that Robert had been handling his mother's care entirely alone since his father died 5 years earlier. His ex-wife lived across the country with their children, and he had no siblings to share the emotional and financial burden. "It doesn't excuse what he did," Maya told Kevin Park, who had become her closest confidant through the ordeal. "But it helps me understand how someone can convince themselves that wrong choices are justified." Maya's most controversial decision came when she testified at Robert's sentencing hearing. Instead of demanding maximum punishment, she spoke about the importance of accountability combined with an opportunity for redemption. "Your Honor," Maya addressed the judge, "Robert Mitchell violated my trust and stole from our company. He put people's jobs at risk and caused tremendous harm. But I believe that justice should focus on making things right, not just punishment." Maya proposed a restitution plan that would require Robert to repay every dollar he had stolen, plus interest and penalties. She also recommended community service that would involve financial literacy education for families facing elder care crises. The judge sentenced Robert to 5 years in federal prison, with the possibility of early release if he completed the full restitution and community service requirements. Maya's testimony was cited as a key factor in the relatively lenient sentence. But Maya's most transformative action was what she did within TechFlow itself. Rather than simply implementing stronger security measures and moving on, she used Robert's betrayal as an opportunity to completely reimagine how the company operated. She established an employee crisis support fund, financed partially by the money recovered from Robert's accounts. Any employee facing unexpected financial hardship could apply for assistance with no questions asked, and no requirement to repay the support. If someone in our company family is struggling, they shouldn't have to suffer in silence or make desperate choices, Maya announced at the company-wide meeting where she explained the new program. We're going to take care of each other. Maya also created an anonymous ethics reporting system that allowed employees to raise concerns about any aspect of company operations. But unlike traditional whistleblower programs, this system focused on providing support and solutions rather than punishment. The transparency measures Maya implemented went far beyond typical corporate policies. Monthly financial summaries were shared with all employees. Vendor relationships were publicly documented. Executive compensation was made completely transparent. We're going to operate as if everything we do will eventually become public, Maya told the management team, because honestly, that's probably the reality in today's world anyway. The response from TechFlow employees was remarkable. Instead of feeling demoralized by the betrayal they had witnessed, they seemed energized by Maya's approach to addressing it. Trust surveys showed higher confidence in leadership than before the crisis began. Client relationships, which had been damaged by the rumors and uncertainty, rebounded stronger than ever. Meridian Corporation not only renewed their contract, but expanded it to include additional services. The procurement manager, Robert Chen, publicly praised Maya's handling of the crisis. What impressed us wasn't that TechFlow avoided problems, he said in a case study published by the Harvard Business Review. It was how they responded when problems arose. That's the kind of partner we want to work with. Industry recognition followed. Maya was invited to speak at business schools about crisis leadership and ethical business practices. Her presentation, titled Leading Through Betrayal, Building Stronger Organizations After Trust is Broken, became one of the most requested topics on the business speaking circuit. But the most meaningful recognition came from her employees. 6 months after Robert's arrest, the team organized a surprise celebration for Maya. They presented her with a photo album containing handwritten letters from every employee, sharing how her leadership during the crisis had affected them personally. Tom from the development team wrote, "You could have become suspicious and controlling after what happened. Instead, you became more open and trusting. That taught me more about leadership than any business book ever could." Maya's assistant, Kevin, who had played a crucial role in uncovering the truth, summed up what many employees felt. "You didn't just save our company. You showed us what integrity looks like when it's really tested." A year later, TechFlow Solutions was more profitable and successful than ever. The company had grown to over 150 employees and had expanded into 3 new markets. Employee retention was nearly perfect, and client satisfaction scores remained in the top percentile for their industry. Maya kept a photo on her desk from Robert's sentencing hearing. It showed her shaking hands with Robert's public defender after the proceeding ended. She had told the lawyer that she hoped Robert would use his time in prison to develop skills for a legitimate career after his release. People sometimes ask me if I regret being compassionate toward someone who betrayed me so completely, Maya reflected during an interview with Business Weekly. But I think the test of our values isn't how we treat people who are good to us. It's how we respond when people disappoint us or hurt us. The interviewer asked if Maya thought Robert's actions had been motivated by desperation or greed. Maya considered the question carefully before answering. "I think it was probably both. But what I learned is that we all have the capacity for both good and terrible choices. The difference often comes down to whether we have support, systems that help us make better decisions when we're facing difficult situations." Maya had transformed her worst professional experience into an opportunity to build something better. She had proven that leadership isn't about avoiding challenges or betrayals, but about how you respond when they inevitably occur. As she looked out her office window at the bustling TechFlow headquarters, Maya felt grateful for the journey that had brought her to this point. The company wasn't just successful. It was a place where people genuinely cared for each other and supported each other through difficulties. Robert Mitchell had tried to destroy everything Maya had built. Instead, his betrayal had given her the opportunity to build something even stronger. And in the end, that might have been the most surprising outcome of all.